Hello, welcome to my channel. This one was submitted by Caden Smith. It started on a cold Friday morning. Westbrook High had that old, Gothic look. Narrow hallways, tall windows, and the faint smell of chalk and mildew. The building's worn walls held decades of memories, some better left forgotten. That day, a girl named Melanie Price showed up late for the third time in a row. She wasn't a troublemaker, just tired. Rumor had it her dad worked night shifts, and she helped raise her little sister at home. Ms. Holloway, the literature teacher, was stern, not cruel, but strict. She had little patience for tardiness, especially repeated offenses. Melanie knew she was in trouble the moment Ms. Holloway called her name. "Melanie, you'll stay after class. No phones. You're organizing the entire supply cabinet and rewriting the essay you failed," Ms. Holloway said firmly. Melanie sighed, but nodded, accepting her punishment. The final bell rang, and the hallways emptied quickly. Melanie stayed behind, moving slowly to the back of the classroom, where the supply cabinet waited. At exactly 3:45 p.m., the classroom was silent and empty, except for Melanie. Outside, a thick fog crept along the edges of the tall windows, blurring the view of the schoolyard beyond. Melanie began her task, sorting through dusty folders and stacking chalk boxes. Her fingers turned white from the chalk dust coating the supplies. The room smelled of old paper and chalk, a scent that felt both familiar and eerie. Suddenly, the fluorescent lights flickered once, then twice. The buzzing overhead grew louder, like broken eyes blinking in the dim room. Melanie looked up, unease creeping into her chest. A cold gust rattled the tall window panes, sending a shiver down Melanie's spine. The shadows in the corners seemed to deepen, stretching unnaturally as the room grew darker. Melanie opened her mouth to call out for help, but no sound came. Panic rose quickly as she realized her voice was gone. She clawed at her throat, desperate to make a noise, but silence swallowed her cries. The darkness thickened as if something unseen was swallowing the light itself. The air grew heavy and cold, pressing down on Melanie like a weight. Without warning, the blackboard tore loose from the wall and flew across the room, striking Melanie's face with brutal force. Blood sprayed, leaving a single crimson line smeared across the board, like a warning written in red. 2 doors down, Julia sat in room 104. She saw everything through the hallway glass and screamed, her voice sharp with terror. Teachers rushed to the scene, finding Melanie unconscious and bloodied, but alive. The blackboard lay shattered on the floor, a silent witness to the violence. Police arrive soon after. They blamed the incident on structural failure, dismissing Julia's story about shadows and flying boards as imagination. Despite the official denial, rumors spread quickly. Students whispered about the haunted classroom, and many avoided room 17 altogether. Strange things began happening around the school. The canteen freezer slammed open violently on its own, startling everyone nearby. Trays flew off counters without explanation, crashing loudly to the floor and sending students scattering. In the girls' bathroom, the mirror fogged up despite no steam. Someone had written on it, "She still remembers." No one knew who she was, but the message sent chills through the school, a silent threat or plea. 2 weeks later, Lena Rivera stayed late in Ms. Holloway's room, working on an intricate paper sculpture for a state fair. The clock ticked past 5 p.m. The lights dimmed, and the whiteboard trembled as if alive. Lena turned slowly, noticing the red marker on the tray, leaking not ink, but blood. Also, the bloodfoot print on the floor. Suddenly, something invisible gripped her head repeatedly. After the violent assault, Lena stopped moving. The next morning, her body was found, and smeared in blood on the board were the words, "You saw me." The school labeled the tragedy a freak accident, but students whispered fearfully about room 107 and the curse it seemed to hold. Determined to uncover the truth, Benny and I began investigating. We pulled dusty old yearbooks from the back shelves of the school library. We compiled a list of students who had attended Westbrook High in the 1990s, hoping to find a connection. Most people we talked to didn't remember anything unusual until we met Mr. Calvin Rhodes, a retired postman living near the edge of town. Mr. Rhodes recalled a girl named Emily Shaw, quiet girl who always wore a felt hat with a feather in it, a gift from her grandmother. Emily looked out of place and was bullied for her unusual hat, especially by a boy named Dale Carter, who had a troubled mind. One rainy afternoon, Dale confronted Emily, calling her a witch and accusing her of dark curses. Emily stayed late that day to finish extra credit, but she never left the school alive. The official story was an accident. Mr. Rhodes told us the school covered up the incident to protect its reputation, silencing whispers of a haunting. We noticed that both Melanie and Lena had worn nice witch hat hairband that day, similar to Emily's, suggesting the spirit was targeting those who reminded it of her. Seeking help, we called Old Man Harlan, a local expert in the supernatural, who was skeptical until we told him about the feathered hat. Harlan asked us to perform a test in room 17. He brought owl feathers and ripe apples, sacred in Native American rituals, to detect spirits. When we placed the feathers and apples in the room, the feathers curled inward, turning pitch black, and the apples rotted before our eyes. Harlan's voice trembled as he warned, This spirit is not just stuck. She's sad, angry, and aware. This is dangerous now. That night, we returned to the school around midnight with Harlan carrying flashlights and an ancient manuscript from his private library. The manuscript described a spirit named Wanenza, the sorrowed girl who lingers when a girl dies in fear, alone and unheard. At exactly 12 a.m., we lit candles, burned sage, and laid river stones in the four corners of the room. We began chanting, Harlan's voice echoing in the dark, blending English and Cherokee words passed down through generations. Suddenly, the windows rattled. Violently, the air grew ice cold, and the whiteboard blurred like fog seeping through glass. A pale face appeared on the whiteboard, eyes sorrowful and lips unmoving. But we heard a voice inside our heads saying, "Stop this. I will never go." The candles flickered wildly, but Harlan stood firm, asking the spirit to tell us her truth. We were flooded with images and feelings. Emily Shaw's story of being misunderstood, bullied, and killed by Dale Carter. Her spirit remained trapped, replaying her pain and mistaking girls who looked like her as threats or reminders of her fate. When her story ended, we resumed the chant. Harlan raised a white stone marked with owl feather ink and pressed it against the whiteboard. Emily's ghost screamed, not in anger, but sorrow. The whiteboard cracked, the lights blew out, and then there was silence. The school reopened quietly. No more late-night incidents, no more deaths. Room 107 was converted into a supply room. For the first time in months, everything felt normal. Until one afternoon, I passed by room 107 and glanced through the tiny window. The whiteboard, long since removed and replaced, had a new message carved into it, a hairline crack that hadn't been there before. The crack stretched across the board, and if you looked closely, you could almost see the shape of a feather. Some spirits just want to be heard. Others want to stay. If you're ever left alone in a classroom after dark, don't wear a witch hairband and never, ever turn your back on the board. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, if you have a creepy story you want to share, comment on below. I will see you next time.